So my research interests are broadly around rehabilitation and desistance. So I'm fundamentally interested in how somebody can go from being a criminal for many years in their lives, what we might call a career criminal, someone who's started committing offences at a relatively young age, maybe in childhood or their early teens, and they've continued to offend into adulthood. But then somehow they're able to stop offending and they're able to become what we might call a normal citizen and lead a very law-abiding lifestyle. So I'm interested in how people manage to achieve that, and that's what we would call the process of desistance from crime. So individuals who've previously been very heavily involved in offending, persistent offending behaviour, are able to lead law-abiding lifestyles. And what are the mechanisms behind that? So is it to do with people forming new relationships? Is it to do with people getting jobs? Is it to do with people finding stable accommodation? Those sorts of things that would help somebody to lead a law-abiding lifestyle. Those are the research areas that I'm most interested in.
I currently undertake research on the relationship between drugs and crime. I'm specifically interested in drug use and offenders and drug treatment provision. More recently, I've been undertaking research on the chemical composition of novel psychoactive substances, and I'm really interested in why some people can control their drug use while others descend into much more problematic patterns of drug use, irrespective of the drug being used.
My research is on women and drugs mainly, so I've done research on women in the international cocaine trade, looking at women who are involved in drug trafficking as drug mules mainly, and I was interested in how gender plays out in that particular setting. I've also done research on women in the street level drug trade as well, so that's a kind of discrete area of interest. At the minute I'm looking at sentencing, which is really about how the criminal justice system responds to people who are arrested for international drug trafficking. We're uncovering some very interesting things that hopefully will be informing international drug policy. In particular, I'm really interested in looking at alternatives to imprisonment and thinking about how we can respond to problems of drug trafficking and drug use.
My own area of research expertise is in domestic violence. My particular focus is domestic violence in lesbian, gay, bisexual and/or transgender relationships. My PhD focused on women who had experienced domestic abuse in a previous same-sex, predominantly lesbian relationship. I explored the types of abuse they'd experienced, the impacts of that abuse, and the ongoing effects on their identities of being survivors of a very hidden form of abuse. More recently, I've been involved in researching perpetrators of abuse in same-sex, bisexual and/or transgender relationships. This has been the first study in the UK to explore abusive behaviours by people used in same-sex, bisexual and/or transgender relationships, and has been groundbreaking in drawing attention to the high prevalence of abusive behaviours being used in relationships, but also the need to contextualise the ways in which abusive behaviours can be used, such that what might appear initially to be an abusive act may not be perpetration of abuse, but might actually be self-defence, or might actually be normalised in the pattern of that individual relationship.
My research focuses primarily on violence against women, especially sexual violence. I'm interested in women's experiences of victimisation. I'm also interested in their reporting of victimisation and their experiences of the criminal justice process. I'm also interested in the role of stereotypes and myths and how that influences the progression of violence against women cases through the criminal justice system. Also interested in the legislation and policy around violence against women and if that's effective and where some of the problems with it may lay.